He took the alien boss's girl as a hostage to survive. Getting her pregnant wasn't part of the plan. The scorching twin suns of Nexus 9 beat down mercilessly as Ansel Evans assessed his dire situation. Bound in energy cuffs, he knelt in the red dust before the makeshift compound of the notorious Crimson Fangs, a gang of interstellar bandits who'd made quite a name for themselves in this sector. His black-grey stealth armour, now scratched and dusty, still gleamed faintly in the harsh daylight. "Well, well, what do we have here?" A gravelly voice spoke in accented standard English. A lone human operative far from any Alliance outpost. The speaker, a hulking reptiloid with iridescent scales and cybernetic augmentations, circled Ansel like a predator. This was Krath, the merciless leader of the Crimson Fangs. His reputation for brutality was legendary across 3 systems. Ansel maintained his composure, a slight smirk playing at his stubbled face. Just a tourist, heard the local cuisine was to die for. A backhanded slap sent him sprawling into the dust. As he pushed himself up, he caught sight of something, or rather, someone, that changed everything. Standing in the shadows of the compound's entrance was a striking humanoid female with pale grey skin and flowing silver hair. Her light grey eyes met his for a brief moment, before quickly looking away. She wasn't just any crew member. The way she carried herself, the quality of her attire, and most importantly, the possessive way Krath kept glancing at her, told Ansel everything he needed to know. She was Krath's favoured companion, his prized possession. And suddenly, Ansel had a plan. A desperate, probably suicidal plan. But it was better than the certain death that awaited him otherwise. "You know what happens to Alliance spies," Krath growled, reaching for his plasma cutter. Ansel moved with explosive speed. Despite his restraints, he launched himself backward, rolling past the surprised guards. In one fluid motion, he was on his feet and behind the grey-skinned woman, his bound hand somehow managing to press a concealed vibroblade against her throat. "Let's renegotiate," Ansel said coolly, even as a dozen weapons trained on him. The woman tensed against him, but didn't struggle. Interesting. Most hostages would panic, but she remained eerily calm. "Release her!" Krath snarled, his cybernetic eye glowing crimson. "And I'll make your death quick." "Counteroffer," Ansel replied, backing slowly toward the compound's gate. "You let me walk out of here with a ship and supplies, and your lovely companion stays breathing. Simple enough, even for a lizard's brain to process." The woman spoke then, her voice carrying an unexpected hint of amusement. "My name is Krystal, by the way, since you didn't bother to ask before making me your shield." Ansel couldn't help but grin. "Charmed. I'd shake your hand, but I'm a bit tied up at the moment." "If you're quite done flirting," Krath interrupted, his tail lashing furiously, "perhaps we can focus on the matter at hand." "Oh, I'm very focused," Ansel assured him, continuing his careful retreat. "Now, about that ship." The desert compound erupted into chaos as Krath roared his defiance. "Kill him!" "But don't harm Krystal." Ansel spun behind a stack of cargo containers, pulling Krystal with him as plasma bolts scorched the air where they'd stood moments before. The energy cuffs around his wrists sparked and fizzled. Apparently, they'd been damaged in the initial scuffle. "Your boyfriend seems upset," Ansel quipped, working to free his hands. "Should I be jealous?" Krystal snorted, pressing herself against the containers as another volley of fire passed overhead. "He's not my boyfriend. More like my jailer with delusions of grandeur." The cuffs finally short-circuited, falling away. Ansel flexed his fingers, noting how Krystal made no attempt to escape. "Not feeling particularly loyal to the boss man, I take it?" "Let's just say I've been looking for an exit strategy," she replied, her grey eyes gleaming with mischief. "Though I hadn't planned on it being quite so explosive." A grenade landed nearby. Anel grabbed Krystal and rolled them both behind a different container just as the explosion sent shrapnel flying. They ended up in a rather compromising position, his body covering hers. "Well," she breathed, her face inches from his. "This is getting interesting." "Lady, you haven't seen interesting yet." Anel reached down to his boot, retrieving a compact plasma pistol the guards had missed in their search. "Can you shoot better than you?" "Probably," she smirked, taking the weapon with practiced ease. They made their way through the compound, moving from cover to cover. Anel couldn't help but notice how well they worked together, as if they'd been training as a team for years instead of meeting at gunpoint minutes ago. "The landing pad is on the north side," Krystal informed him between exchanges of fire. "Krath keeps his personal shuttle there." "Okay, it's the fastest ship in the compound." "Of course it is," Anel muttered. "Any other surprises I should know about?" "Just that it's protected by automated defense turrets, and only Krath knows the override codes." Anel grinned. "Now that's the kind of challenge I like." They reached an elevated position overlooking the landing pad. True to Krystal's word, 4 nasty-looking turrets guarded the sleek shuttle. Crimson Fang members were spreading out below, searching for them. "I need a better angle," Anel said, eyeing the opposition. Without warning, he positioned himself behind Krystal, using her shoulder as a stabilizing rest for his rifle. The intimate contact made both of them freeze for a moment. "Are you using me as a gun rest?" Krystal asked, her voice carrying an odd mix of indignation and amusement. "You're the perfect height," he replied, his breath tickling her ear. "Besides, I thought we were past the whole hostage-taker formality." She shivered slightly, though whether from his proximity or the desert wind, Anel couldn't tell. "Just don't miss." "I never miss." He squeezed the trigger 4 times in rapid succession. Each shot found its mark, disabling the turret's power cells with surgical precision. "Impressive," Krystal admitted, "but we've still got about 20 angry mercenaries between us and that shuttle." "Then it's a good thing I brought a one-woman army with me," Anel winked at her. "Ready to show me those shooting skills you bragged about?" What followed was a masterclass in coordinated combat. They moved as one, covering each other's advances, calling out targets, and slowly but surely making their way to the shuttle. Krystal proved to be as skilled as she'd claimed, her shots finding their marks with deadly accuracy. "Your form is excellent," Anel commented as they ducked behind a fuel container. "Are you critiquing my shooting stance or checking me out?" Krystal fired back. "Both, literally and figuratively," he said, taking down an approaching guard. "Can it be both?" Their banter was interrupted by an earth-shaking roar. Krath had emerged onto the landing pad, his cybernetic enhancements glowing with rage. "You dare!" he bellowed. "You dare steal what's mine!" Krystal's expression hardened. "I was never yours to begin with, you oversized lizard." She stood up to take a shot, but Krath was faster than his bulk suggested. His tail whipped through the air, knocking the container aside and sending them both sprawling. Anel rolled to his feet, placing himself between Krystal and the advancing crime lord. "You know," he said conversationally, "I'm getting really tired of people treating her like property." "Then allow me to reunite you both in death," Krath charged, his cybernetic arm transforming into a deadly blade. Anel sized up Krath's cybernetic enhancements with a professional eye. The crime lord's augmentations were top-tier black market tech, and like all black market tech, they had exploitable weaknesses. "You know what I did before becoming a fugitive?" Anel called out, dodging another swipe of Krath's blade arm. "I was a cybernetic specialist for the Alliance military." Krystal had taken up position behind a fallen cargo container, providing covering fire to keep the remaining guards at bay. Less talking, more surviving. "Trust me, gorgeous," Anel winked, pulling a small device from his armor's utility belt. "This is all part of the plan." Krath lunged forward, his enhanced speed making him blur in the desert heat. Your plans end here, human. But Anel was counting on that attack. He rolled under the swing, slapping the device onto Krath's cybernetic leg. The crime lord's next step faltered, his movements becoming jerky. Quantum destabilizer, Anel explained, dancing away from another attack. Plays havoc with neural interfaces. Give it about 30 seconds, and your fancy upgrades will start fighting each other. Krath roared in frustration as his cybernetic arm twitched uncontrollably. What have you done? The thing about black market augments, Anel continued, circling his opponent, is that they're usually cobbled together from different sources. No unified operating system. One little disruption, and the whole network goes haywire. Krystal took advantage of the distraction to make her way closer to the shuttle. The engines are warming up, she called out. But we've got company incoming. Anel glanced up to see 3 patrol skimmers approaching from the horizon. Their window of escape was shrinking rapidly. Time to end this, he muttered, pulling another device from his belt. This one was larger, with pulsing blue lights along its surface. Krath's cybernetic eye widened in recognition. An EMP? You'll kill us all. Wrong again, lizard breath, Anel grinned. This is a targeted pulse, only affects systems operating on your specific frequency. Which means? He activated the device. Krath's augmentation seized up completely, leaving him paralyzed but very much alive and conscious. The crime lord toppled over, his mechanical parts locked in place. You're going to lie there and watch us steal your ship, Anel finished, already running toward the shuttle where Krystal waited by the open hatch. I'll hunt you across the galaxy, Krath raged. There's nowhere you can hide. You really know how to make enemies, Krystal remarked as they rushed into the shuttle's cockpit. Her fingers danced across the controls with practiced ease. It's part of my charm, Anel said, strapping himself into the co-pilot's seat, admiring how naturally she handled the advanced controls. Where'd you learn to fly? Let's just say I wasn't always a crime lord's trophy. The engines roared to life as she executed a perfect vertical takeoff. I've got quite a few surprises of my own. The patrol skimmers opened fire, but Krystal's piloting skills proved as impressive as her shooting. She weaved through the barrage with elegant precision, climbing rapidly into the atmosphere. Speaking of surprises, Anel said, checking the sensor readings. We've got 2 pursuit craft launching from the compound's hidden hangar. Krystal's expression turned predatory. Good. I was hoping for a chance to really show off. What followed was the most extraordinary display of piloting Anel had ever witnessed. Krystal threw the shuttle into a series of maneuvers that should have been impossible for a craft its size, using the planet's upper atmosphere and magnetic fields to her advantage. You're incredible, Anel breathed, watching her work. The way her eyes sparkled with concentration, the slight smile playing at her lips as she outmaneuvered their pursuers. It was all intoxicatingly attractive. Save the sweet talk for when we're not about to die, she replied, but her smile widened. Though I do appreciate the compliment. A warning light flashed on the console. They're launching missiles, Anel reported, already working to activate the countermeasures. Perfect timing. Krystal pulled the shuttle into a tight spiral, leading the missiles on a precise path. At the last second, she cut the main engines and fired the maneuvering thrusters, causing their pursuers' own missiles to cross paths and destroy each other. That was, Anel started. Amazing? Brilliant? Sexy as hell? Krystal suggested, reigniting the main engines and plotting a course away from the planet. All of the above. He couldn't take his eyes off her. The adrenaline of their escape, the thrill of victory, and her undeniable skill had created an electric atmosphere in the cockpit. You're not so bad yourself, she said, finally meeting his gaze. That trick with Krath's cybernetics was pretty impressive. Where did you really learn that? That part wasn't a lie. I did work for the Alliance, just not exactly in an official capacity. He shrugged. Let's say we both have interesting histories we might want to share someday. Someday, she agreed, her tone softening. But first, we need to decide where we're going. Krath wasn't exaggerating about hunting us down. Anel leaned back in his seat, studying the star chart displayed on the navigation screen. I might know a place, small mining colony in the outer rim, the kind of spot where people don't ask too many questions. Sounds perfect. Krystal programmed the coordinates he provided. Though I have to warn you, if you're planning to use me as a hostage again, you might want to rethink that strategy. The stolen shuttle cruised through hyperspace, its sophisticated autopilot maintaining their course toward the outer rim. In the dim light of the cockpit, Anel and Krystal sat in comfortable silence, the adrenaline of their escape finally wearing off. So, Krystal broke the quiet, her grey eyes reflecting the streaming stars. You never did tell me how a cybernetic specialist ended up in Krath's custody. Anel ran a hand through his tousled hair, a gesture Krystal found inexplicably fascinating. Would you believe I was looking for you? She raised an elegant eyebrow. Me? Not you specifically, he clarified, but someone like you. I've been tracking a pattern of high-end cybernetic shipments to various crime lords across the sector. Each shipment coincided with the arrival of a new companion for the boss. Understanding dawned in Krystal's eyes. You thought we were being controlled by implants, weren't you? She shook her head, a bitter smile playing at her lips. Nothing so technological, just good old-fashioned economic coercion. My people, the Aori, are known for our natural affinity with advanced systems. Krath wanted a pilot who could handle his custom ships. Anel leaned forward, genuinely intrigued. But you're more than just a pilot. I was a test pilot for the Etheria Defense Force, she revealed, until my family's trading company went bankrupt. Krath offered to clear our debts in exchange for my services. And now, Anel's voice softened, what do you want? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Krystal stood, moving to the viewport where the hyperspace corridor created mesmerizing patterns of light across her pale grey skin. Freedom, she whispered. The chance to choose my own path, my own She turned to face him, her expression intense. Connections. Anel rose to join her, drawn by something neither of them could fully explain. I'm not exactly the safest choice for a connection. Says the man who took me hostage, she teased, but there was heat in her voice. That wasn't my finest moment, he admitted, now close enough to catch the subtle scent that was uniquely hers. Though it worked out better than expected. Did it? Her hand found his chest, feeling his heartbeat through the armour. Because I'm starting to think you're still my captive. The tension between them had been building since their first exchange of witty banter, through every shared moment of danger, every triumphant escape. Now, in the relative safety of hyperspace, it threatened to overwhelm them both. Krystal. Anel breathed her name like a prayer, his hands finding her waist. Are you sure about this? About us? I've never been more sure of anything, she replied, her fingers tracing the lines of his face. My people believe that true connections are forged in moments of crisis, when souls recognize each other, despite all logic. Their first kiss was like a supernova, passionate yet tender, breaking down the last barriers between them. What followed was a dance as old as time itself, transcending species and circumstances, a celebration of life, survival, and newfound trust. Hours later, they lay entwined in the shuttle's small sleeping quarters, talking softly about everything and nothing. Krystal traced patterns on Anel's chest while he played with her silvery hair. My people have a legend, she murmured, about humans. They say your species has an extraordinary capacity for adaptation, for connecting with other races in ways that shouldn't be possible. Anel chuckled. We're too stubborn to accept limitations. It's more than that, she insisted. There's something special about humans, something that draws others to you. Your passion, your determination. She propped herself up on an elbow to look at him. Your ability to turn enemies into allies with nothing but charm and courage. Now you're just stroking my ego. I'm serious, she said, her expression thoughtful. What you did back there, taking control of the situation, protecting me even while using me as a shield. It shouldn't have worked. But it did, because you're human. Annelle pulled her closer, considering her words. Maybe we just got lucky. There's no such thing as luck, she replied with conviction. The universe has patterns, Annelle. We just have to be brave enough to follow them. The shuttle's computer chimed, indicating they were approaching their destination. They dressed unhurriedly, sharing soft touches and knowing smiles. Whatever happens next, Krystal said as they returned to the cockpit, I want you to know I don't regret any of it. Annelle took her hand, bringing it to his lips. Neither do I, though I have to admit this isn't how I expected my mission to turn out. Life rarely goes according to plan, she smiled, settling into the pilot seat. That's what makes it interesting. The mining colony of New Haven materialized before them as they dropped out of hyperspace, a collection of dome structures clinging to a rocky planetoid. Annelle was explaining the settlement's history when Krystal suddenly gripped the control panel, her face paling to an even lighter shade of grey. Are you all right? Annelle reached for her, concern evident in his voice. Just dizzy, she managed, closing her eyes. It's been happening the past few days. I thought it was just stress from our escape, but the shuttle's medical scanner beeped to life, responding to her elevated vital signs. As the results scrolled across the screen, both of them stared in stunned silence. That's impossible, Annelle whispered, though the evidence was clear before them. Apparently not, Krystal replied, her hand unconsciously moving to her abdomen. Though the odds of human ether compatibility were supposed to be astronomical. Before they could process this revelation, the shuttle's proximity alarm blared. 3 ships had just emerged from hyperspace behind them, the distinctive silhouettes of Krath's hunter-killer vessels. Perfect timing, Annelle muttered, already calculating escape vectors. How did they find us? Krystal's fingers flew across the controls, her earlier discomfort forgotten in the face of immediate danger. The quantum signature of Krath's personal shuttle. They must have been tracking it across hyperspace. Can we outrun them? Not with these fuel levels, she replied, her expression turning fierce. But I can outfly them. Annelle strapped himself in, trusting her abilities completely. What about your condition? I'm pregnant, not invalid, she shot back, though her lips curved in a small smile. Besides, this little one is half human. If your species is known for anything, it's surviving impossible situations. She threw the shuttle into a series of maneuvers that would have made a professional stunt pilot green with envy. The pursuing ships opened fire, but Krystal anticipated the attacks, using the planetoid's irregular gravitational field to her advantage. The medical scan, Annelle said between barrel rolls, showed something else interesting. The fetus is producing some kind of unique energy signature. Etherian children often manifest abilities early, Krystal explained, diving beneath a mining platform to avoid another barrage. But combined with human DNA, this could be unprecedented. A blast rocked their ship, taking out one of their stabilizers. Krystal compensated instantly, but Annelle could see the strain on her face. We need to land, he decided. I know people in the colony. We can lose them in the maintenance tunnels. And then what? Krystal asked, though she was already adjusting their course. We can't keep running forever. Not now. Annelle reached across the cockpit to take her hand. Then we stop running. We fight back, on our terms. She squeezed his hand, understanding the unspoken promise in his words. They weren't just fighting for themselves anymore. The shuttle screamed through New Haven's atmospheric shield, Krystal pushing its damage systems to their limits. Behind them, only 2 pursuit ships remained. The third had misjudged the planetoid's gravity well and been pulled into a mining debris field. "The main landing base will be watched," Krystal noted, scanning the colony's layout. "There," Anel pointed to a maintenance dock near the base of one of the smaller domes. "It's technically for emergency vehicles only, but this definitely qualifies as an emergency." Krystal finished, already adjusting their approach vector. The dock's automated systems tried to deny them access, but Anel's cybernetics expertise came in handy once again. The doors opened just wide enough for their shuttle to slip through, closing seconds before their pursuers could follow. They abandoned the ship quickly, knowing it would only be a matter of time before Krath's men found a way inside. As they moved through the maintenance corridors, Anel noticed Krystal's hand repeatedly drifting to her midsection. "Having second thoughts?" he asked softly. She shook her head, silver hair catching the dim emergency lighting. "No, just processing. My people have legends about hybrid children. They're said to possess extraordinary abilities, to bridge worlds in ways we never imagined possible." "No pressure on the little one then," Anel quipped, but his tone was gentle. "You humans," she laughed quietly, "always making jokes in the face of destiny." "It's one of our better qualities," he said, pulling her into an alcove as footsteps echoed from a connecting corridor. "Along with our adaptability, determination, and excellent taste in partners." The footsteps passed without incident, but they remained close, drawing comfort from each other's presence. The reality of their situation, fugitives, expectant parents, targets of a criminal empire, should have been overwhelming. Instead, Anel felt strangely calm. "You know what this means, don't you?" he whispered against her hair. "That we're going to have to deal with Krath once and for all?" "That," he grinned, "and you can never tease me about taking you hostage again." "Clearly you're the one who captured me," she replied. Deep within New Haven's maintenance tunnels, Anel and Krystal found temporary sanctuary in an abandoned environmental control room. The space was cramped but secure, filled with outdated monitoring equipment that provided excellent cover from prying eyes. Kraft's weakness, Anel mused, pulling up schematics on his portable terminal, has always been his reliance on technology, his cybernetics, his ships, his entire operation. It's all built on stolen tech he barely understands. Krystal leaned against him, her body's natural warmth a pleasant contrast to the room's cool, recycled air. "And you understand it better?" "I should hope so. I designed half of it." At her surprised look, he elaborated. "Remember those black market shipments I mentioned? Most of those designs were stolen from my lab after the Alliance discharged me." "For what?" Her fingers traced idle patterns on his arm, sending pleasant shivers through his body despite the serious conversation. "I pushed too hard, too fast, wanted to explore human-alien hybridization technology." He gave her a meaningful look. "Ironic, considering our current situation." She smiled, placing his hand on her still flat abdomen. "The universe has a strange sense of humour." The moment was interrupted by distant footsteps in the corridor. They tensed, but the patrol passed without discovering their hideout. Once the danger had passed, Anel returned to his planning. "Kraft's cybernetics are third-generation prototypes," he explained. "The neural interfaces were revolutionary at the time, but they have a critical flaw. Under specific quantum frequencies, they can experience cascade failures." "Like what you did during our escape," Krystal nodded, "but he'll be expecting that now." "True, which is why we need to think bigger." Anel's eyes gleamed with determination. "His entire operation runs on similar systems, ships, security, even his base's life support. One properly calibrated pulse could bring it all down." "You're talking about destroying everything he's built." Krystal's voice held no judgment, only understanding. "He'll never stop hunting us otherwise." Annelle turned to face her fully. "I won't let him threaten our family." The word family hung between them, heavy with meaning. Krystal's eyes softened as she pulled him closer. "Our family," she repeated, testing the phrase. "I like how that sounds." Their lips met in a tender kiss that quickly deepened, passion igniting between them as it had so many times before. Each touch, each shared breath reinforced their connection, their commitment to protecting what they'd found together. Later, as they lay entwined on their makeshift bed of emergency blankets, Krystal traced the scars on Annelle's chest. "Tell me more about your research, the real story." "Yeah," he said. "I believed humanity's future lay in understanding and adapting alien biology," he explained, running his fingers through her silver hair. "Not just cybernetics, but genuine biological compatibility. The Alliance thought it was too dangerous, too unpredictable. And now?" She smiled, touching her abdomen again. "Now I think they were afraid of exactly this, real connection, real understanding between species. It's easier to control people when they are divided." "Humans," Krystal chuckled, "always challenging the established order. Says the alien pilot who stole her crime lord's heart." "I preferred the human who stole mine," she countered, kissing him again. Their planning session resumed with renewed focus. Annelle's technical expertise combined with Krystal's intimate knowledge of craft's operation created a comprehensive strategy. They would need specific equipment, precise timing, and more than a little luck. "The quantum pulse generator will need to be placed here." Annelle indicated a point on the base's schematic, close enough to affect all major systems but protected from immediate detection. "I can get us in," Krystal assured him, "but we'll need a distraction, something big enough to draw attention, but not so obvious that it reveals our true plan." Annelle grinned. "I might have an idea about that. How do you feel about stealing back your old ship, the Starcross?" Krystal's eyes lit up. Craft's pride and joy, the ship he never lets anyone else fly. "Exactly. While they're chasing the galaxy's best pilot in their fastest ship, you'll be destroying everything they left behind." She laughed. "It's absolutely crazy. I love it." Their planning continued through the night, interspersed with moments of intimate connection. Each touch, each shared smile reinforced their determination to succeed. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore, they were fighting for a future together. "There's one more thing," Annelle said as they finalized the details. "Something I've been working on since we landed." He pulled out a small device, similar to the one he'd used on Craft, but more refined. "What is it?" "Insurance, a targeted virus that will permanently disable any cybernetic system that tries to interface with either of us. No more control. No more tracking." Krystal examined the device with professional interest. "You did this in just a few hours?" "I had motivation," he kissed her temple. "Besides, I've been designing countermeasures against my own tech for years, just in case." "Always prepared," she murmured appreciatively. "That's another thing I love about humans." The execution of their plan began at New Haven's artificial dawn. Anal and Krystal moved through the maintenance tunnels with practiced stealth, their earlier intimacy replaced by professional focus. Yet there was a new depth to their coordination, as if their growing bond had enhanced their ability to anticipate each other's movements. "Security patrol ahead," Annelle whispered, checking his scanner. 3 guards, all with basic cybernetic enhancements. "Craft's been busy," Krystal noted, recognizing the energy signatures. "Those are prototype combat augments. He must have accelerated production after our escape." Annelle frowned, recalibrating his disruptor. "That complicates things. These new models might be hardened against my original frequencies." They waited in silence as the patrol passed, then continued toward their objective. The maintenance shaft leading to Craft's compound was barely lit, forcing them to rely on their tactical visors. "Something's off," Krystal murmured as they approached the access point. "The security patterns are too regular, too predictable, almost like a trap." They set in unison. Ansel pulled up the compound's power distribution data on his HUD. "Energy usage is 30% higher than standard operations would require," he noted. "They're running additional systems." "Can you identify them?" "No, but—" He paused, studying the readings. "Whatever they are, they're drawing power from the same grid as the life support systems. That's not standard protocol." Krystal's tactical experience kicked in. "He's expecting us to target his cybernetics. These new systems must be some kind of backup, or worse." Ansel added grimly, "Remember those shipments I was tracking? The last one included experimental bioenhancement prototypes, technology designed to merge with organic tissue at a cellular level." "You think he's implemented them already?" "It would explain the power draw. The integration process requires massive energy input." Ansel ran his fingers through his hair, a gesture Krystal had come to associate with intense problem-solving. "This changes everything. If Kraft has successfully merged with these prototypes, a simple quantum pulse won't be enough." Krystal placed a hand on her abdomen, a habit she'd developed since discovering her pregnancy. "Then we adapt. It's what humans do best, isn't it?" Her words sparked something in Ansel's memory. The bioenhancements, they were designed to work with specific genetic markers, human genetic markers. But Kraft isn't human. "Exactly." A predatory grin spread across Ansel's face. "He's trying to use technology that wasn't designed for his species. The integration might appear successful, but under stress it could fail catastrophically." Krystal finished, catching his train of thought. "But how do we stress systems we can't directly disable?" Ansel pulled her close, his expression intense. "Remember how we met. Sometimes the best strategy is the one your enemy least expects." "You want me to be the hostage again?" Krystal raised an eyebrow, amusement dancing in her grey eyes. "No," he replied, his voice dropping to a husky whisper. "I want you to be exactly what you are. The one thing he can't stand to lose. His perfect pilot, his symbol of control, now carrying a human child." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "You want to trigger an emotional response, force him to push his enhancements beyond their design limits. Kraft's always been ruled by his possessiveness. Finding out about us, about the baby, it might be enough to destabilize the integration process." "It's risky," Krystal said, but her tone was thoughtful rather than afraid. "If we're wrong about the enhancements—" Ansel cupped her face in his hands. "Then we fall back to Plan B. The Star-Cross is still our ace in the hole." Their eyes met in the dim light, volumes of unspoken emotion passing between them. Then Krystal pulled him into a fierce kiss, pouring all her trust and determination into the contact. "For our future," she whispered against his lips. "For our family," he agreed. They separated reluctantly, each checking their equipment one final time. The plan was dangerous, perhaps even foolhardy, but they both knew it was necessary. Their child deserved a future free from Kraft's shadow. "Ready?" Ansel asked, his hand. Ansel placed his hand hovering over the access panel. Krystal squared her shoulders, every inch the elite pilot she'd been trained to be. "Born ready. Just remember, if this goes wrong, you're explaining to our kid why Mommy and Daddy thought taunting a cybernetically enhanced crime lord was a good idea." "Deal," Ansel chuckled, then turned serious. "Krystal, no matter what happens in there, She cut him off with a soft smile. "Me too." The compound's main control center hummed with artificial life. As Ansel worked his way through the maintenance ducts above him, Krystal was making her grand entrance through the front door, drawing all eyes exactly where they wanted them. "Missing me already, Krath?" Her voice carried through the facility's comm system, dripping with calculated disdain. Anel smiled as he planted the first power grid destabilizer. Krystal's talent for dramatic distraction was proving as impressive as her piloting skills. "My dear Krystal," Krath's response rumbled through the speakers, his voice different than Anel remembered, deeper, with an artificial resonance that confirmed their suspicions about the bio-enhancements. "I knew you'd return, though I admit I expected you to choose a less suicidal approach. What can I say? Humans have rubbed off on me," she paused deliberately, "in more ways than one." Anel nearly dropped his tools at her audacious delivery. Even through the security feeds, he could see Krath's cybernetic eye flaring with rage. The power grid's reading spiked erratically, emotion affecting the bio-enhancements exactly as they'd hoped. "Speaking of your human," Krath growled, "where is he hiding?" "Oh, you know humans," Krystal replied airily, while Anel planted the second destabilizer. "Always working on something interesting. They're remarkably creative." The energy fluctuations intensified. Anel's HUD displayed the bio-enhancement system struggling to maintain stability. Krath's organic tissue was rejecting the forced integration, just as they had theorized. "You were mine," Krath snarled, his composure cracking. "My perfect pilot, my greatest possession." "That was your first mistake," Krystal's voice hardened. "Thinking you could possess me. Humans understand something you never did. True connection can't be forced or bought. It has to be earned." Anel reached the power distribution hub, his fingers dancing across the control panel. The destabilizers were in place, the grid primed for overload. Now they just needed Krath to push his enhancements past the breaking point. "And what has this human earned?" Krath demanded, "besides a quick death when I find him?" "A family," Krystal answered simply. "Our child will be born free, Krath. Free from you. Free from anyone who thinks they can own us." The reaction was immediate and violent. Alarms blared as Krath's augmentation surged, drawing dangerous levels of power. Anel initiated the grid overload sequence, timing it perfectly with the crime lord's loss of control. "You dare," Krath roared. "You dare taint yourself with human seed." "Actually," Anel cut in, broadcasting through the facility speakers, "I'd say we enhanced each other quite nicely. Remarkable what can happen when two species come together willingly." The power grid exploded in a cascade of controlled chaos. Emergency systems activated, then failed, as the destabilizers did their work. In the command center, Krath's bio-enhancements began to break down, unable to handle the strain of his rage and the technical assault simultaneously. "Now," Krystal signaled, already running toward their rendezvous point. "Get to the Star-Cross." Through the security feeds, Anel watched her sprint toward the landing bay, guards falling before her precise shots. The facility systems continued to fail around them, but Krystal moved with absolute confidence, trusting Anel to clear her path. They met at the ship's access ramp, covering each other as they fought their way aboard. The Star-Cross responded to Krystal's touch like an eager lover, systems coming online before she even reached the pilot seat. "Krath's following," she reported, her fingers flying across the controls. "His enhancements are failing, but he's still dangerous." "Good," Anel replied, strapping himself in. "Let him come. Time to end this." The landing bay doors were sealed, but that hardly mattered to Krystal. She fired the Star-Cross's weapons, blasting their own exit through the facility's hull. As they accelerated away, Krath's enraged howl cut through their comm system. "You think this ends here?" The crime lord's voice distorted with static and fury. "I'll hunt you across the galaxy. You'll what?" Anel interrupted, activating his final surprise. "Chase us with systems that can barely keep you alive. Your bio-enhancements are rejecting your tissue, Krath. Human technology doesn't play well with forced adaptation. You planned this. Let's just say pregnancy has made us both very motivated to tie up loose ends," Krystal added, executing a manoeuvre that shouldn't have been possible in the atmosphere. Behind them, Krath's compound began to collapse, its power systems completely destroyed. The Crime Lord's empire was literally crumbling, along with the stolen technology that had built it. "One last thing," Ansel said, genuine steel in his voice. "If you ever come near my family again, what I did to your systems will feel like a gentle massage compared to what I'll do to you personally." They cut the comlink as Krystal piloted them into the upper atmosphere. In the co-pilot seat, Ansel watched her work with undisguised admiration. The way she handled the controls, the slight smile playing at her lips, the fierce determination in her eyes. He fell in love with her all over again. "You're staring," she noted, not taking her eyes off their escape vector. "Just appreciating the view. Not every day you get to watch the galaxy's best pilot steal her own ship back." "Our ship," she corrected, "and our victory." 6 months after their escape from New Haven, the Star-Cross glided into orbit around Eeyore Prime, the homeworld Krystal hadn't seen since her family's financial collapse. The planet's crystalline city sparkled beneath them, a testament to the Athia's mastery of advanced technology. "Last chance to change your mind," Krystal said, her hand resting on her now prominent belly. "My people can be intense about new things." Ansel wrapped his arms around her from behind, nuzzling her neck. More intense than taking on a cybernetically enhanced crime lord while stealing his favourite ship? Point taken. She leaned back against him, enjoying his warmth. "Although we still need to deal with that last surprise Krath left us." They discovered it 3 months ago, a dormant program buried in the Star-Cross's systems, designed to activate when they least expected it. Rather than panic, they turned it into an opportunity. "The trap is set," Ansel confirmed. "When his backup plan triggers, it'll lead his remaining followers straight into Alliance custody." "Consider it our baby shower gift to ourselves," Krystal said. She turned in his arms, her grey eyes meeting his with familiar intensity. "Speaking of our baby, the medical scans confirmed it's a boy. Have you chosen a name?" In Athar culture, the mother traditionally named their firstborn. "Nixar," she said softly. "It means bridge between stars in my language. Appropriate for a child who bridges 2 species, don't you think?" Ansel kissed her tenderly. "It's perfect, though we might need to give him a human middle name, something equally meaningful like—" The ship's alarm interrupted his suggestion. Krath's program had activated right on schedule. They separated reluctantly, moving to their stations with practiced efficiency. "Incoming transmission," Krystal reported, her fingers dancing across the controls. "Looks like our old friends took the bait." "Alliance ships moving to intercept," Ansel confirmed, watching the tactical display. "Krath's last lieutenants won't know what hit them." They observed as the trap played out perfectly, the remnants of Krath's organization walking right into a carefully orchestrated ambush. The Alliance had been more than happy to help, especially after Ansel provided evidence of the Crime Lord's technology theft. "That's the last loose end," Krystal said with satisfaction. "Now we can focus on more important things." As if in agreement, their son kicked, making her gasp softly. Ansel was at her side instantly, his hand joining hers over her belly. "Still practicing his pilot manoeuvres," he chuckled. "Takes after his mother." "With his father's talent for causing trouble," she countered affectionately. The Athire Landing Control contacted them, granting priority clearance thanks to Krystal's restored family status. Her parents, after learning the full story, had not only welcomed her back, but had embraced Ansel and their unconventional relationship with surprising enthusiasm. "Your people have a saying," Ansel mused as they began their descent. "The stars guide us to our destiny." "And humans say, make your own luck," Krystal added. "I think we've managed both." They landed at her family's private dock, where a small welcoming committee awaited. Before leaving the ship, they shared one more intimate moment, remembering how their journey began. "You know," Anel said, his voice playful, "taking you hostage was the best mistake I ever made." "And getting pregnant wasn't part of the plan," Krystal replied, pulling him close. "But sometimes the best things in life aren't planned at all." Their kiss was interrupted by another kick from Nixar, making them both laugh. Their son, it seemed, had inherited their perfect timing. As they walked down the Star-Crossers ramp together, Krystal thought about their extraordinary journey, from hostage and captor to lovers and parents. Their story had defied every convention and expectation, yet here they were, proof that the greatest adventures and the deepest loves often come from the most unexpected beginnings. "Ready for our next chapter?" Anel asked, squeezing her hand. Krystal smiled, feeling Nixar move within her. "With you? Always." The crystalline spires of Eeyore Prime stretched toward the stars above them, a reminder of how far they'd come and the boundless possibilities that lay ahead. Their son would be born into a world where human determination met Atheray innovation, where love knew no boundaries of species or space. And somewhere in the galaxy, a former crime lord's empire lay in ruins, a testament to what happens when someone underestimates the power of true connection and the lengths two people will go to protect their future together.